don't want to grow up. I would love to go back to coloring books, naps, and recess. Fly me to Neverland, please. I remember as a kid, one of my favorite movies was Hook. It's the one with Robin Williams playing an adult Peter Pan. I used to get so upset because he left behind all the lost boys to grow up, get married, and have kids, but in that process, he totally forgot all about Neverland. If it were me, I don't know if I could give up flying and never growing old for a job and kids. For those who have never seen the movie, Peter's kids are taken hostage by Captain Hook and he has to rescue them. The problem is he doesn't remember Neverland or even being Peter Pan. He has to recover his relationship with the Lost Boys, his imagination, and his happy thought in order to save his kids. These memories don't just come back to Peter. It takes him remembering why he chose to grow up in order to recover them. Peter chose to grow up because he experienced love. It is your average adventure story, but the underlying theme is love and the significant way that love changes us. I've always related more to the Lost Boys in the story. It saddens me to think about leaving my childhood behind. I'm afraid I'll forget everything about it. Thinking about my future is a really scary thing. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility to try and plan out your future career at the age of 17 while simultaneously searching for a prom dress. This year has been hard because I've had to come to terms with the fact that no matter how much I hate it, I'm growing up. I've had to learn to give up things like free time, hanging out with my friends whenever I want to, and worst of all, binge watching Netflix. At times, I really felt like it was unfair, especially because it's my senior year and I just want to be able to enjoy it. Can't I just live in my Neverland for a little while longer? I first discovered these growing pains in middle school, that prime time where you start trying to find yourself or be who you want to be, as the world tells us kids to do. I went through a lot of phases I'd rather not think about in middle school. I was stubborn and refused to cut my hair until I was told by the girls in my class that I should. I ignored all of the clothes that my mom picked out for me and went with the things that were popular amongst my classmates. I made my decisions on how I thought others would perceive me, which I must tell you is not the way to go. Everything changed when I found my high school, Ware Academy. Going to that school was one of the best choices I have ever made. It was an exciting escape from middle school at first, but now it has become much more than that. Though there has still been growing pains, I found a community to support me through the difficult life experiences and transitions. My teachers are loving and supporting, and they're always there for me to talk to. My principal makes a point of learning every single student's name, so if he sees you in the hallway, he'll address you by name and ask you how your day's going, because he genuinely cares. My friends don't influence me to do anything. They bring out the best in me. They challenge me to learn new things about myself. They are my lost boys, always there for me, helping me find my identity. I have discovered something about love in that place. When I was younger, I used to think that the only people you said I love you to were your family. But it dawned on me sophomore year that there are a lot of people I love at my school. My friends, my teachers, I love them for letting me be who I am and not trying to change it. I love them for being ridiculously funny and making my day better. I love them for being there for me when I need them. Their love has given me the support to grow, and I can't imagine going through life without that kind of love. My church community is the same. I have known most of you since I was little. I hate that within the past year, I haven't been able to attend church or youth group as often as I wish I could, but that's just another thing that I've had to come to terms with this year. What I love, though, is that no matter how long it's been since I've seen people like Adam Team or Lynn Bunce, I still feel the acceptance and care from them when I return. When I think of caring and loving people, College Park is what comes to mind. We are a church that is all about accepting and loving everyone. We are a church that actually practices what we preach and reach out to the community. I have certainly learned a lot about helping others through this church. Some of my best learning experiences come from our youth group's annual mission trip. Every year, I am amazed at where I experience love in completely unexpected ways. Last year in Hiawassee, I worked on a few different homes. The first home was of a man who was aging and unable to make the needed repairs to his home, so we stepped in. He stopped by to check on us a lot throughout the day, and by lunchtime, he came out and offered us all popsicles. This small gesture made me think, This man had to take the time and effort to get these popsicles that he paid for with his own money out of his freezer and walk them outside to us just because he thought it was a nice thing to do. And remember, this man was an older gentleman who struggled to walk. The last home I worked on that week was a woman named Miss Rosie. Miss Rosie was a sweet woman who had a very kind heart. She was always talking about her family and her grandchildren, which you could tell that she adored. She lived in a home that was falling apart on one side from nerve damage. I've never really understood how some of the kindest people get the worst luck. Throughout the few days that we were there with her, she always greeted us with a smile, offered us food, and made sure that we were okay while we did what we could to fix her home. She radiated love and kindness, and I believe that she deserves the best in life because of it. These acts of love may seem small, but isn't that what love is anyway? This reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Mother Teresa. We can do no great things, only small things with great love. I don't believe that love has one set definition. One can love, be loved, show love, and do things with love. What I do believe is that everyone should try their best to express or accept love every day. One of the best things about youth trips is that we always find time to reflect. At the end of each day, Lynn gathers us all together for worship, and a part of that is a moment where we all discuss where we saw God. Sometimes it is in nature, sometimes in other people, or in just how the day occurred. I often see God in beautiful things in nature, but when I see God clearest is when people are expressing love. The text for this Sunday says, "The person who refuses to love doesn't know the first thing about God, because God is love." So you can't know God if you don't love. This text reminds all of us that the way we will come to know God best is through each other. God's love is most clearly experienced in seeing loving, kind acts. Most importantly, it not only reminds us of the ways that we might experience God's love through others, but it reminds us that we might too be the ones showing God's love through our actions. I believe that everyone needs to open themselves up to love in order to experience the beauty that God provides for us. Love is not something that you do with the intention of getting something out of it. Instead, if you go through life with the mindset of helping others and showing your love, then you might come to know something of God's deep love for us. Growing up is still scary to me because I know that life and love are vulnerable things. But when I think back over the love that I have received throughout my life, I remember that I am not alone. Like Peter, I find that growing up is difficult, but I have also found that it is meaningful. The love Peter discovers with his wife helps him see the greater good from investing in love. The love I've experienced from teachers, friends, this church, my family, my youth group, and through the acts of complete strangers, help me better understand the greater good in growing up and investing in love. As I move on from high school to college and then on from there, I know that I will always remember the love that I have received, and I will do everything I can to give it back. You can do anything as long as you have love, faith, trust, and a little bit of pixie dust.
For the past 4 years, I've been trying to convince Lynn that she would never get me up here to do this. Yet, here I am. When I was really young, I was completely obsessed with dinosaurs. Even though I'd never actually seen a dinosaur in real life, I believed in them completely. By the age of 3, I was insulted if you didn't know the difference between a T-Rex and an Allosaurus. My favorite movie was Jurassic Park. When my mom expressed her worry that watching it was too scary for a 3-year-old, I calmly explained to her that it wasn't scary. It was simply the circle of life, that dinosaurs needed to eat. Even when I was young, I was an interesting mix between wide-eyed innocence and realism. But I actually think that children in general have a unique ability to think like this, to be confronted with life while not losing the wonder and the mystery. It is not a conscious decision. It is just part of their nature. Children see the world through eyes that have not been clouded by the realities of life. It is through this unique perspective that we can all benefit. I'm reminded of this every Sunday morning when I hear the kids offer their insight during Sunday morning children's sermon, or when I pass them downstairs playing and building with large Lego blocks. Legos are a great way to see life through the eyes of a child. I remember how much I loved Legos when I was a kid. You could give me a bucket of bricks and I would spend hours creating anything and everything, including a mess. The possibilities were endless. I loved playing with Legos, but I hated cleaning up afterwards. It was a constant battle with my parents. And as some of you may know, it really hurts when you step on a Lego. But I wonder, what if we all approach life with the imagination and creativity of children playing make-believe or building with Legos? I wonder how differently we might approach the major problems of our world, like hunger, war, global warming, or homelessness. If we try to see it through the eyes of a child, who knows, we might just create something amazing. Have you ever heard the term divergent thinking? The idea is coined by Ken Robinson. It is the ability to see many different answers for a question. For example, you might ask someone to think of how many uses there are for a paperclip. Most people come up with 10 to 15 answers. Someone who is a good divergent thinker would come up with as many as 200. As you might guess, for divergent thinking deteriorates with age. A study of kindergarten children measured 98% genius level for divergent thinking. 5 years later, when they were 8 to 10 years old, those same children tested at 50% genius level. Another 5 years later, the percentage dropped even further. Wide-eyed innocence and realism is a balance that the older we get, we tend to skew more towards realism. As many of you know, I was diagnosed with leukemia 2 years ago. While the days of intense chemo and radiation are behind me, I still have another year left to go in my treatment plan. As a result, my experience as a teenager has been a little different. Leukemia is the hardest thing I've ever had to go through, but I would not change it because it has shaped the person that I am now. One way this experience has shaped me is instead of focusing on the negatives, I have learned to try to focus on the positives of a situation. For instance, it's an ongoing joke in my family that I get out of doing chores because, well, you know, I have cancer. When I was diagnosed, I didn't want to watch anything stressful, so I discovered the Food Network and developed a love for cooking. I found cooking to be a great metaphor for life. Consider the stages involved in cooking. First, you plan the meal, then you prep the ingredients, you follow the recipe, then cook. Then you get to sit back and enjoy your creation as well as share it with others. The thing about cooking, however, is that you can follow the recipe perfectly, and sometimes things just don't turn out right. Sometimes you have to improvise. Throw in a little chemo here and a little creativity there before your meal is done. I have also had some incredible experiences since being diagnosed. Many of you, especially the youth group, came to support me when the Make-A-Wish Foundation arranged with UNCG to have an art show with many of my pieces on display. 200 plus people, from friends and family to UNCG students and professors I had never met before, came to view my art. They also gave me some great art supplies I could use at home and school. I'm glad the Make-A-Wish Foundation does this for children all over the country. I have recently learned of another organization, Cancer for College, who has granted me a scholarship for college next year. Jesus says that if we want to really understand the kingdom of God, what the kingdom of God is all about, then we have to try and see the world through innocent eyes of a child. In 1 Timothy, Paul encourages Timothy not to be discouraged because he is young, but to use his youthful life as a ministry tool. Both Paul and Jesus seem to suggest there is something about the youth that opens up those of us who have forgotten how to see the world through wider, more hopeful eyes. 1 John reminds us of this too, in a more direct way. The text instructs us in a new way of seeing God. Look around you. God is all around you in the loving acts of others towards us, and to see each other. Embodied in kindness, generosity, grace, and forgiveness, it is a simpler and more innocent, childlike way of seeing God in the world that was much easier for me to see when I was younger. For the past 4 years, I've been an art student at Weaver Academy, and this fall I'll be attending UNCG to major in art. One of my favorite things about art is that everyone in a room can have the same idea, but that each person's vision of it would be different. It is this diversity that makes life so interesting. As Christians, we are to love our neighbor. Learning to accept each other's diversity is what will truly allow us to love each other.